welcome again, everyone. Bill and Jim here. We have a very special guest. You all pretty much know him. He's one of the interviewers, and we're going to interview the interviewer. We have Greg Hunter with us. Greg, how are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. I'm pleased to be on it. I love you both, Jim Sinclair and Bill Holter. I love you guys.
Well, we got you on the other side of the desk on this one. We're going to be grilling you.
Fire away.
I guess the best place to start off, because it's just so blatantly obvious, we've pretty much lost the rule of law here in the United States, and we've completely lost the media. It's almost as if the alt media has supplanted the old media, and the old media is like Pravda or TASS or they're basically cheerleaders for the left. And you were a journalist with CNN and ABC, right?
Correct.
Okay. Back in the old days, there was a press. The press might lean one way or the other, but not like today.
Correct. You're correct.
So, how did it get this way? Tell us about the old days. Tell us where you think it is now.
I was hired to be an investigative reporter at ABC, actually by Diane Sawyer, and that's what I did. And I was just to let you know, this idea that the reporters are in charge and they just put anything they want on the air, on the New York Times, that's total BS. I never walked by the control room and looked at Shelley Ross, the executive producer of at Good Morning America, and said, "Hey, I got a great story this morning. Wait till you see it on the air for the first time. It'll be a great surprise." That never happened.
Right.
Ever.
It was always seen ahead of time.
Never. Should have escorted me out of the building for that. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have got there. They would have sent a limo to pick me up. Oh, jeez. Are you kidding me? And, it was, and I'll tell you how anal it was as an investigative reporter. Just so you understand how the level of, so when you see this going on in the press, it's not something small. I would go out and I did big stories, I did money stories, I did consumer stories, I did death people where people died and could, get the network sued. I went after the Pentagon for depleted uranium. I went after the housing market for the fraud in the housing, they call it robo-signing, which it was forgery, perjury, and fraud on the court. Produced the note. These guys didn't have the notes. They couldn't prove they owned the houses. Anyway, I would, and this is both at CNN and at ABC, very similar procedures. We would do an interview with, let's say we were going to confront somebody about something they did, and they were going to have an interview, and they were going to sit down with us, and we would, shoot the interview, and then we'd send it off to a transcription service, and then we would send, with our script after we were finished, a transcription of every interview we had. And the lawyers would go over it, and sometimes standards, that would usually be a pre-thing, but standards where should we use our cannon to, get this, this popcorn vendor, one guy on the street, should we ruin him? I am making that up, but we would send the script over, here's what we want to say, here's our interviews, and they would go over the sound bites, and the lawyers would look at the sound bites in context to what they said, and they would adjust the script or say, well, hold on a minute. There was one time where we actually had a guy who was a former preacher who was cheating people. I can't remember exactly. I can't remember exactly what it was, and I don't want to name him because I don't want to get into the weeds here, but it was a preacher he was cheating people. And I started the interview, and in the first minute he said, yeah, that's right, I cheated him. I cheated him. I did. Now, later in the interview he said, well, I cheated him, but I didn't mean to. Guess what the attorneys, when we turned in the transcript of that, so we used the soundbite of, yeah, I did it. I cheated him. And, I don't know if that's a verbatim, but close to it. And then later, yeah, well, I didn't mean to. So guess what they made us do? They made us put him in his best light. And they made us use the soundbite where he said, yeah, I didn't mean to cheat him. I may have cheated him, but I didn't mean to cheat him. Okay? That's how anal it was at the networks. Nothing moves at the networks. You don't go to a party and you get named in a party. You don't go to a big donor's house without the networks approving that. And if you did, and they didn't fire you, that's tacit approval. That's what happened with a bunch of people. They were invited by and gave dinner parties for, fundraisers. The Washington Post gave dinner parties. I mean, the top people at ABC, some of the top people at Politico, even they all these emails have been released that the guy at Politico said, well, I think I'm turning into a hack. Well, yes, you are. Right. George Stephanopoulos, David Muir, none of these guys got fired for any of this stuff. And it's outrageous. Trump's making jokes at the Catholic dinner where, the NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, all working overtime to get Hillary elected. Well, that's true.
It's absolutely true, yeah.
And so, and it's really worse than Pravda, and I'll tell you why, Jim, Bill. I'll tell you why it's worse than Pravda. See, Pravda is a state-owned entity. They don't have shareholders. They don't have to hold themselves out as a news organization where they're a fair arbiter of the truth. They don't have the scam of, we have George Stephanopoulos. He's fair. We have Lester Holt. He'll be fair. That's their scam.
Right.
That they pay millions of dollars a year for these people for the image of, whatever that. Even a local TV, an anchor.
The Russians, it was a state-owned newspaper, and you're hearing right from the government.
That's right, and everybody knew that. And so Pravda, Pravda is synonymous with propaganda. I mean, if you say Pravda, it's like saying, a Kleenex for tissue. Okay, Pravda is propaganda. But that's not what these guys hold themselves out, and it certainly wasn't what they hold themselves out to for shareholders. This is fraud on shareholders and fraud on the public. And it is proven fraud because they're not functioning as news organizations by, the New York Times giving the ability for people to edit their scripts and stories. There's another story out recently about, there's another WikiLeaks where it looks like a rundown of, New York Times is working on this, Politico's working on that. They look like they're the assignment editor. And as a reporter, I never told anybody what I was working on. Now, if it was already hitting the promotional schedule, sure, I got a story on depleted uranium at the Pentagon, or I got a story about XYZ car company and their killer airbags. But that was a finished, done, in the can. There's no way you could catch me. I had it finished. Now if you're an entertainment show and you're doing stories on a cruise ship, and you tell them, but we're going to be down here on the lower deck, with the shuffleboards, and then we're going to be doing a story about the captain, and then we're going to be doing a story about the chief chef. Sure, that's entertainment TV. That's lifestyles of the rich and famous. You don't tell that to a political campaign. You don't tell them what you're working on.
Right.
Yeah. Hell no.
Political campaign, your question.
You're trying to be a watchdog, quote unquote watchdog over? You're going to tell them what you're working on and what the outcome of your story is? I would be, if I was the news director, I'd be, you're fired. Turn in your shit, get out. You're done. None of these guys get fired. None of these people get fired. Hey, come on.
Well,
so this is a giant fraud on the public. Go ahead.
I said they only get fired if they ask Hillary real questions like Matt Lauer. She wanted him fired.
Look at the guy, his name was DaCosta at the Wall Street Journal last year, who questioned Chair Janet Yellen over insider information that got released from the Fed, and people made money on it. Where interest rates were going. I think that was what it was. And then he asked about how you got a investigation quashed in the Senate. And guess this reporter, this was the last year. You can Google it. See what his name is DaCosta. He got fired.
Yes. He
got fired. So all these guys are not functioning, and that isn't like, hey, Janet Yellen, your daughter is a crackhead, and I'd like you to talk about your crack. She's not. I'm making this up. But that's not like that question. That question is about, hey, you are the Federal Reserve. You're a subcontractor for the monetary policy of the United States, and your information got out, and people made money on it, and then you killed an investigation. Oh, can't have that. Boom, fired. Unbelievable.
Well, Greg, up until this year, there was a cover, if you will, that the press was fair, but they don't even try to cover it now.
Well,
they come right out, and one guy came right out and said, we've done the best we could for Hillary.
That was Chris Cuomo, the son of the former Governor Cuomo of New York,
right,
who now works at CNN. But that's just you. But the stuff in writing, Donna Brazell, giving the questions to Hillary Clinton. She was working for CNN at the time, or as a consultant or whatever, who's now the DNC chair, because the other one got fired because was laid bare by WikiLeaks that she colluded to screw over the Bernie Sanders voters, which I think is their biggest problem. And I'll explain it in a minute. Bernie Sanders voters are Hillary Clinton and the Democrats' biggest problem, and they will not address it. They won't. But the press, I got to tell you, and we'll come back to the Bernie Sanders voters, this is now, they were always, everybody thought, and if you could take a look at what they were doing, you could tell they were, Lester Holt, I don't need an email to know that what he was doing was totally biased. I don't need that. Chris Wallace did pretty good compared to the other guys. My God, he was right down the middle.
Yeah.
But he was pretty good, pretty fair, because he brought up relevant stuff that should have been brought up. I mean, the Hillary Clinton, let me tell you this, I'm going to be interviewing Lawrence Kolikoff. He's running for president as a write-in candidate, supposedly, and he came up with this, Donald Trump he's unhinged. Whoa. Now it's been laid bare that the Project Veritas and the supporters are a reflection of Trump, that they were sending homeless people in some cases and mentally ill people, and they were sending people, they were committing violence, cops got hurt, people got hurt, they're committing violence at rallies. Look at the Chicago thing, they shut it down. Now we find out how they did it on camera by the people that were heading it up who have resigned. The other guy, one of them is a guy by the name of Robert Creamer. He's talking about voter fraud. Another guy, is Scott Fovel. He's talking about the protesters and about the violence to make it out. Which is why Hillary Clinton talked about, Donald Trump's voters are deplorable. Well, here we have the guy Fovel is saying, well, the Clinton campaign pays the DNC, because the DNC isn't like the money-raising arm of the Clinton campaign, and then they pay somebody else, and they pay somebody else. This is a felony incitement of violence. This is just so many laws broken here. It's not even funny.
And there's no FBI.
And no FBI, no
FBI?
Justice Department. Of course, they're busy, destroying the computers of people the Justice Department, FBI, destroying the computers of people the Justice Department have given immunity because they have no intention of ever prosecuting any cases. And so, this is this false narrative they painted with Trump and his supporters. And, listen, I'm not even, I am not a Democrat or a Republican, but listen, this is out over the top fraud and nobody and wrongdoing and dirty tricks and felony law breaking, and the mainstream press isn't going to cover it. You're kidding.
Well, it's Banana Republic stuff. I mean, it's like waving a flag. We are now a banana republic.
If the Republicans did this, don't you know, ABC, NBC, CBS, New York Times, Wall Street, I can't believe they hired people to commit violence against Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Can you imagine? Just put in Republican. It's off the charts.
Yes.
And it shows me the reason why they've been laid bare is two reasons. Reason number one, WikiLeaks. Thank you, WikiLeaks. Reason number two, they're desperate. They're over-the-top desperate. They know they're losing.
I think they're losing big.
Huge. I think they're losing big.
I think they're losing by 25, 30 points.
I'll tell you why they are.
Bernie
I just
Sanders
had somebody
voters.
write me an email, and it said, Greg, thank you for providing an alternative news source counterpoint to the pablum spews from the MSM. And by the way, I'm a former Bernie supporter that now supports Trump.
Right.
If only to try to shake up the crony capitalist system we've been dealt. How are this? For number one, I think Bernie Sanders won, despite the fact that it's been now late. The DNC chair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Democratic National Committee chair, she lost her job. She stepped down. Of course, Clinton hired her. No collusion there. Then the DNC and the Clinton campaign colluded with the press to help her and to take away from not only Bernie but O'Malley and everybody else. And basically screwed him out of the decision. I had people anecdotally calling me, emailing me, actually calling me too, and saying that they lived in California and they thought California was stolen by the Democrats for Hillary. that they had all kinds of things that were not the normal thing you see on the primary day, and a bunch of shenanigans were going on, and they thought that they stole California for Hillary. This is what people said, and they gave some information about it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know one thing's true, and that they rigged the system against Bernie Sanders. That's laid out by the WikiLeaks emails. The head of the DNC lost her job. Okay? That is a fact. That's not my conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy fact. How do you think, and he won, so it's over half of the Democrats. How do you think that you're going to get these millennials or young people? They're like, Bernie Sanders was like Trump. He was like a rock star. He was getting 10, 15, 20,000 people packing. Hillary Clinton's getting 200, 300, trying to go to schools where she has captive audience, trying to get involved into a parade where she can make it look like these people are coming out to see her.
Right.
How do you get half of the Democrat electorate who you just punked and cheated and screwed, and oh, by the way, the WikiLeaks thing, they're calling Bernie Sanders doofus and these things, and young people are going to search online for the WikiLeaks stuff. How are you going to have any chance if you lose half of your voters? I haven't talked to a single Bernie supporter that said they were, I'm going to vote for Hillary. I haven't talked to a single one. I have people writing me. I see people in the street. I see people out, young people, millennials, and what I consistently get is, so Bernie was your guy. Yeah, right. I said, so you're going to vote for Hillary? And no. I bet you Donald Trump gets more Bernie supporters than, because he was very close to Bernie on what? Trade and on Wall Street. How much money is Donald Trump getting from Wall Street? Well, that'd be what, $20,000? How much is Hillary Clinton getting all these speeches, where she tells Wall Street, yeah, I have a public opinion, but that's just, punked. He would lie. Then I have a private opinion. That's my real opinion. Well, you got $145 million, $140 million? What did she get from Wall Street? And so Trump is a lot like Sanders there, and then there's Jill Stein, which is another big pain in the wazoo for the Democrats, because she's really a communist, Democrat, an anti-war Democrat. And then there's Gary Johnson, who's really a Democrat. And there is no way on God's green earth Hillary Clinton's going to get all three of those candidates will get way more of those supporters than her. How can she win? That's just with that metric alone. Oh, women are voting for Hillary way more than that. Well, you lost half of your voters. You cheated and defrauded and punked people that stood in the rain, that collected money, and all of his donations were like $25. I think the average donation was something like $25.
Yeah, it was like
$22, something low. You're telling me that these people are going to go, oh, you cheated us. Oh, okay. For a year and a half of this going on, they're thinking that they had a shot at this, and they should have in an unrigged system. I think Sanders would have been the DNC candidate. I don't agree with a lot of his policies, but I do agree with about the Wall Street and the trade thing, which is destructive, which is just like Trump says. But I will tell you that how are you going to get those people? Come on, this isn't the real world here. No way. I just read you something that came in today, unsolicited, and this is I hear this over and over again on my site. I'm a former Bernie supporter, and I'm not voting for Hillary. Either they vote for Stein or Trump or whoever. Yeah, Trump's the guy that's going to win. Stein and Gary Johnson don't have a chance of winning, but Trump has a chance of winning, and you know he's not. He's hated by the Republicans. He's hated. Anyway, but I think that the press is desperate. And and I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't shareholder lawsuits against these organizations. Which I actually saw the New York Times covering the Project Veritas videos. I actually saw because it's way late, but I actually saw a story on that. So I couldn't believe it. And I think they're trying to protect their reputation, which is horrible. It doesn't make any difference in the court of public opinion. They're getting creamed. They didn't put any of this stuff. They put all this Donald Trump stuff up, which has been largely proven false. And stuff from 25 years. He touched me 25 years ago. Oh my God! He touched 25 years ago. 3 weeks before he touched me. Anyway.
Hey, Craig. The interesting thing about the WikiLeaks emails is that to this point, none of them have been denied.
Ding, 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 ding. You are correct, sir.
They have not said they were made up. They've not said anything. The only thing they're saying is that they were stolen by the Russians, and that's illegal. And actually, CNN was trying, I think on Thursday, they put out, you can't read WikiLeaks because it's illegal. It's illegal to read it.
Total lie. You can't steal it. If you're the one trying to steal it, yes, that is, you shouldn't be stealing it.
Right,
yes, you're right. But if it comes out in the public domain, it's like the Pentagon Papers. That's like, you know what that's like? That's like I think it's Chris Cuomo that said that. That's like saying, hey, the Pentagon's papers were stolen, this is a case against, the New York Times, right, which exposed a lot of terrible details about the Vietnam War, which is in part what helped it come to an end. But the Pentagon, it's like saying, well, the Pentagon papers were stolen, which is what the government said, and said you can't release them, and they did anyway. That's like saying after they're released by the New York Times, that's like saying, oh, you can't read them. They were stolen. Come on. It's outrageous. I mean, there's no journalism here. It's propaganda, and they're going to if they don't have actual shareholder lawsuits against them. Here's the other thing that this WikiLeaks. Millennials, they're going to go online and search for WikiLeaks, and the search for WikiLeaks and these emails are off the charts. The search for Donald Trump online is like nil. The search for these WikiLeaks, and who are the voters that are searching online? It's people like are 60 and 70 and 80 years old, and no, these are 20-somethings, and these are the Bernie voters. They're right. Seeing this in full, They're not getting their news from David Muir or from George Stephanopoulos or from Lester Holt. They're not getting their whole news from those people.
Well, you got to say at this point, the ultimate journalist is Julian Assange.
I would say yes. I hope they don't try to kill him.
And it looks like that's what was it? Yesterday, there were reports of heavily armed troops outside of the embassy.
Well, if they go in there, they're committing an act of war against Ecuador. So that'd be an act of war. That's the same as what happened when in Iran in the late 70s. They basically went into America in that embassy.
The next 2 weeks are extremely dangerous.
Yes.
We had yesterday we had internet outages all over the country. Now, whether that's a test to take it down, how do you stop the WikiLeaks stuff from being read? You shut the internet down.
Well, at this point, the damage is so bad, but I think that the
Greg,
internal polling...
It's my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but my opinion is this has only been hors d'oeuvres. The main course is going to be served over the next couple of weeks.
I think you're right. I
would agree with that, too.
It's accumulative, and it's also accumulative. It's just accumulative. It's awful. And, all these young people who want to be these idealistic Democrats, which I guess at one time maybe it was, but it's a completely fraudulent, lying institution that does dirty tricks. And Republicans have done dirty tricks, too, now. Republicans have done things...
absolutely. But
they've done, but this is
idealism at this point.
This is off the charts. This is, and the thing is that it's a combination of the WikiLeaks being released, and also the massive panic. Because listen, Hillary Clinton committed fraud. I'm going to just to simply lay it out, and I say this a lot. And I want to just boil this down. They talk about her servers, her servers. Let me boil this down. See, it's very simple. She had multiple servers. That's multiple servers, plural. Multiple servers to hide the fact she was taking treasonous bribes from foreign countries in the form of donations to her global charity fraud, the Clinton Foundation. She did not act alone. Even Rupert Murdoch has donated to the Clinton Foundation. Did he get something out of it? I don't know. But listen, the whole bribe thing, the whole pay to play, the whole criminality, the whole FBI destroying the laptops of two of the key people they gave immunity to, the Justice Department. Then they destroyed the laptops. James Comey looks like a complete and total weasel, but yet said in Congress, please don't call us weasels, quote unquote, please don't call us weasels. We got it wrong. No, you didn't get it wrong. You
did it on purpose.
You meant to get it wrong.
Right.
And we have a lawless government. We have the State Department colluding with the Clinton camp, the Clinton campaign. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's completely fraudulent. And when Donald Trump said, "I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor" in the number two debate, and she said, "Well, oh yeah, you'd have to be in charge of our legal system." He says, "Yeah, you don't want me in charge because you'd be in jail." Exactly. And she ain't the only one's going to jail. And so you have a fevered pitch of panic that this has been all laid bare. You know, whenever they said, "Oh, it's the election process," and the elections are rigged, and all the people went, "Oh, well, that's kind of a conspiracy theory." Well, no, not so much, right? Well, the left-wing media is really totally biased. Well, you got it in their own words in black and white, giving editorial control away to the Clinton camp and to Hillary Clinton. And the DNC, giving the questions out ahead of time, and CNN and these fake polls, where they oversample Democrats to make it look like Clinton won, and I don't believe any of the polling. Incidentally, I don't believe any of it.
Not
I think
even
it's
close.
No, I think a lot of people are telling the pollsters, "Oh, I'm going to vote for Hillary," and I think a lot of African Americans are going to vote for Donald Trump, a lot more than what anybody would imagine, because it's people. I always say this: people know the truth when they hear it, and then him saying, "Listen, your neighborhoods are terrible, your schools are declining. They've been telling you for 50 years they're going to help you, and at the end of this election, they're going to pat you on the head and say, 'Thanks for the votes. See you later, suckers.' So what do you have to lose?" says Donald Trump. And that is. To me, I just think that the truth when you hear it, and there's got to be plenty of black folks that are going to say, he's right.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, do you not think it's interesting that the Russians are being blamed for basically everything? And going one step further, Uranium One was sold to the Russians.
John Podesta got a $35 million payday. I mean, that's a fact from the Russians.
Right.
There's also allegations of him money laundering. That's not a story. You look at the mainstream press. That's not a story? You're kidding me, right? I used to work in your houses, incidentally, I would say to the mainstream press. You're telling me that's not a story? I mean, that's, as Jim Sinclair says, and I love saying this, Jim, that's too stupid to be stupid.
We take a look in our conversation here, and the extraordinary risk of this election is it is rigged. If you're in a state of panic, you'll do anything. What if we have President Clinton? Where do we go? I have had the darndest time writing anything, because what I see scares the hell out of me. And I don't see the value of doing that to the average Joe. But the biggest risk we have is that we're sort of sitting back and saying, well, Trump will win. Don't worry about it. How about Clinton wins? We should worry about it. Where are we going as a country?
I think it's a bigger problem if Trump wins. I hate to say that because when you look at somebody who's committed global fraud and treason, that'd be Hillary Clinton, compared to a private businessman who said bad things. There's no comparison.
No, there is none. I mean, we have a national crisis of who we are, depending on two things. One, the election isn't rigged, and people see what we see, or the election is rigged and Clinton is president.
I think the markets would rather have the status quo and the robbery and the fraud to go unpunished and continue.
Of course.
That ain't going to happen with Donald Trump. And therein lies the real problem, is that, if Clinton is elected, and I still think we have a calamity. Nobody's going to, they get the Saudis selling our bonds, and you guys know more about this than I do, and I've learned a lot from both you guys, but, it doesn't, you don't have to be a rocket scientist when $346 billion reported over at Zero Hedge that the Saudis and the Chinese have sold, and they're heating up in the South China Sea, and what better way to neuter your opponent than to cut off their money? And so I don't know. I think either way, but I think Donald Trump is going to win in a landslide, and a landslide's going to be hard to rig against. That's why all these phony polls. Oh,
you got to rig it everywhere.
Oh, it's only a few points. That's a lie. That's a complete total lie.
Will the machine that controls our markets and controls the media work for Trump if he's elected?
Oh, the answer is no. That's why they came out with this whole thing about draining the swamp. And Paul Ryan, he's going to be one of the shortest speakers of the houses ever if Trump's elected.
Joe, my concern is two ways. One, it's rigged and we have a calamity. Two, it isn't rigged and the machine that's kept all this together doesn't work for him. The plunge protection team goes home on vacation.
I don't know. I mean, everybody has a lot to lose on this. I mean, and they're going to try to start a war. I mean, I heard somebody mentioned that, I think it's Paul Craig Roberts, said that, what they may do is get us into a complete full-blown war, and, Trump will take office as a wartime president, and then he's got to try to, win a war or extricate us from a war or whatever, that they're working overtime to do that. And then they'll just work against him. The machine will work against him, to your point. But then Trump will have to have mass firings of all kinds of people in the bureaucracy to make it work. It's going to be mass firings to make this work. He knows this. He's not stupid.
You got your list of who's got to go, and it makes up probably 70% of who's there now.
Bingo. That was the number I was going to say, Jim.
Yep.
70%.
At least all the management. They're gone.
I've been quiet, Greg, because the question is so severe. Okay. We take comfort that maybe there's a little of the Constitution left and we can reconstruct it and matters like that. But this is the apocalypse. Okay, you're going one way or you're going the other, and if the machine doesn't work for Trump, he's going to have a hell of a hard time, which is going to impact the general listener now. So there is no win-win out there.
There's no win. Well, the only way we got to get rid of this the crime.
Oh yes.
We just have rampant crime. We have massive crime. We have no markets. We have manipulation, intervention. All you guys know that. I mean, at least back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, I mean, at least they tried to hide it, and people would go to jail for it. Look at Michael Milken, and look at the folks at Enron, and look at that kind of stuff. But not today. Oh, look at Wells Fargo. Massive fraud. Not a single indictment.
Right.
No. And in all these cases of massive fraud, not a single indictment.
Not a single criminal indictment. There are lots of pleading guilty.
Yeah.
It's just, and the mainstream press acts like that's a parking ticket. I mean, they should be all over.
But it is a parking ticket, Greg.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, the corporation makes the payment, and it's pocket change for the corporation.
And that's what DaCosta was about. Here he's asking the Federal Reserve about what they were doing and how did they get a investigation thwarted in the Senate, and then the guy gets fired. And if anybody starts going to the government or sitting up in a White House press conference, which if I was Breitbart and I was a much bigger entity, I would be sending people to say, or I would be there going, why isn't nobody going to jail? Why are there not criminal investigations? Which shows the whole thing is one big giant ball of fraud and crime.
Well, Greg, if you were Breitbart, you would have been hard attacked.
Okay, that's the machine. There's your organized crime.
It's organized crime. It's sanctioned. It's at the very least, it's sanctioned by the government.
You're right.
At the very least.
Sanctioned crime, and that means somebody's getting a piece of it.
Yeah.
And what we have here is the probability that piece may be exposed. So you have a third criteria to think about. What if there is a massive exposure of what you and I and truthfully the listeners know is going on? What's the impact psychologically?
Sell. What did John Williams say? He said this for a long time, and John Williams has been early, so he looks wrong. But I got to tell you, just because you're early doesn't mean you're wrong. And Williams has been early, and I think he's right. And
the numbers don't lie. I mean,
he's $16 trillion at least held outside the country.
Yeah. 16.
Could you imagine if they just had to liquefy $3 or $4 trillion? Only our annual budget every year, $3 trillion with the Fed. What would happen to the Fed's balance sheet? What they got? It's $4.5 trillion now. That's what they admit to. And what were they going to take to $8 trillion?
Well, Greg, they're already doing that, but you don't even see it because they're not even reporting it. Who bought that $346 billion that Saudis and China sold?
That'd be
and on top of $1.2 trillion additional debt that was taken on last year. Who's the buyer? It can only be the Fed, but it's not showing up on their balance sheet because they're cooking the books.
They have to be cooking the books. I mean, we may, if you did a real accounting of that, you might find 10 trillion, 15 trillion. I mean, it's there is. I mean, and everybody's holding these notes. I mean, they don't realize. And I tell people all the time, and I don't give advice. I don't give investment advice. People call me all the time and say, what about this? I say, I can't give you investment advice, but I will tell you, listen, you're saving notes. You're saving the same as a promissory note. That's a financial instrument. That's a Federal Reserve note. I mean, you'd be better off getting a bag of quarters and half dollars, but that's a little bulky because those are not notes. Those are quarter dollars, half dollars. Those aren't notes. Those are Treasury instruments. The notes are Federal Reserve instruments, and notes can be defaulted on. And they can be defaulted on by what? Hyperinflation. And I think we're going to have a carnival. Now, you guys tell me if this isn't true. I've always long said that we're not going to get one or the other. We're going to get both. We're going to get hyperinflation, and we're going to get deflation, debt destruction, and hyperinflation in goods and services. What do you guys think about that scenario? We're going to get it all.
Spot on. That is our scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well as yours.
You'll have deflation of the things you have and own, and inflation of the things you need.
Oh, that's good. That's simple.
Yeah,
I love it.
That is very nice. Okay.
Inflation of the things you have and own, and deflation of the things you have and own, and inflation of the things you need.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. That's a good one.
Okay, well done, Bill.
The other thing that could happen, let's say Trump wins. Let's just say he wins. Okay, so I think it's more stabilizing for Hillary to win. Okay. People will groan and grumble and whatever, but because you don't know what's going to happen at that point. I mean, she's already committed another act of treason by saying it takes 4 minutes to launch the nuclear weapons. That's another act.
Yep.
That's another screw up.
Yep.
That's a big one, isn't it? That's a big one.
I agree.
You got to be kidding me. With a country, our opponent, Russia, doing, and this is reported in the UK Independent, doing drills for 40 million Russians in their big cities. Nuclear war drills. Mm-hmm. Going in and putting on gas masks and going in underground and that kind of thing. So that's a big screw up. But what happens if Trump wins and everything is laid bare? And and everybody says, "Oh my God, it's not going to stay the same." Sell. And then everybody starts selling their bond portfolio. And the other thing is that they're not going to need as much, as many dollars. I mean, now you have the Saudis raising their own capital, $17 billion. They don't need all those Treasury notes. They'll have their own. They'll raise cash. They'll raise capital. A lot. I did just recently talk to Catherine Austin Fitz. I said, "Why are they selling?" She says, "Well, I think they need the money. I think they're all in dire straits, and they're going to cash out their savings accounts." Well, it doesn't make any difference why they do it. If they do it, my gosh, to monetize that debt is another thing. I talked to Hugo Salinas Price, who founded Electra, which is basically the Walmart of Mexico. Nice guy. And he says, what we did we didn't print dollars, we printed bonds. And wait until those bonds liquidate. It'll be a rain shower of dollars pouring over the country, pouring over America. It'll be huge hyperinflationary when they liquefy that debt. Are we there yet? Is November 9th the trigger?
Yeah, we're right at that stage. I would say over the next, and I have been saying this over the last month, these last few weeks going into the election, and I've spoken about truth bombs for about a year.
Yes, sir.
I think the next 2 weeks you're going to see more truth bombs dropped, and your fear of everything being laid bare, I personally believe it's going to happen over the next 2 weeks. I think the American public is finally going to be shown in black and white, the whole thing is a fraud.
The burning. I don't want to come back to this, folks. This is getting glossed over. This guy that writes me, his name is Joseph, who's I'm sure a millennial, who represents over half of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
They know they've been screwed. These are the people that are reading all the WikiLeaks. These are the people reading that. Oh, the Democrats called Bernie Sanders our candidate a doofus, and the other thing that's being covered up, and this is Bernie Sanders out campaigning for Hillary Clinton. What you're not hearing with the mainstream press is all the cries of people hollering out at Bernie Sanders that he's a sellout, that he screwed him, that he was a fraud. You can't do that with 15 million people. That's how many? 7.5 million people. How many people voted in the Democratic primaries? 15, 18 million? 15 million? Half of that is 7, 8 million? You got 8 million voters?
Right.
The math is, I don't see how you work the math out in that, unless you give everybody a lobotomy, unless the entrainment technology is working. I don't know.
Well, Greg, this country's been given a 30-year slow-motion lobotomy.
This is what the mainstream press has long feared. And, I will tell you this. When I was at CNN, I had the hardest time. Jim, I'll just let you know this. When I first interviewed Jim Sinclair on CNN, this was like circa 2008, late 2007, early 2008, because I was still there. I was there till July of 8. And the hoops I had to jump through. Who is this Jim Sinclair? Well, he was giving a speech down at the American Stock Exchange when it was still the American Stock Exchange. It got taken over by NASDAQ or whatever. I said, well, he's giving a speech to 500 people downtown Wall Street. I mean, they're not going to have some kook down there giving a speech to 500 of the top brokers and people in the country down at Wall Street, and here's his resume, and here's who he is, and I finally got him on. Same thing with John Williams. Who's this guy, John Williams? Shadow Stats. What's that? I said, well, he's a Ivy League trained economist, and he has this. He was very very cutting edge. Takes all the the stuff and boils it down. That was the only time that I know of that Jim ever got on mainstream television.
That's right.
I don't know if John Williams, they had him on a few times after that, but nobody touches him. Nobody touches these guys. And the reason why is because of what you're talking about, the truth. They don't want the truth. My God, they don't want the truth. Well, they don't want anybody talking about the truth.
Yeah, they cut. I mean, if you're telling the truth, they'll cut the feed.
Yes. It's sad. Let me tell you how, for CNN to lose somebody in the middle of an interview and then all of a sudden color bars pop up. Color bars pop up.
It's impossible.
Well, what would happen if you really lost the feed is you wouldn't get, boom, immediate color bars.
No, you'd have snow.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
And so,
would
this is...
press a button and put the color bars up.
Well, these guys are desperate, and I have another prediction about the mainstream press. They're never going to recover from this.
No, they're not. You're right.
They're done. Shareholders... they're going to Gannett GCI. They split Gannett in half, which was television and all the newspapers, like 90, 100 newspapers, and USA Today is their flagship paper. And their stock is down 25% in the last year. This is an election year. They ought to be booming it, and the reason why is because of all the campaign spending. They should be killing it. They're down 25%. Whoa, people are selling them. New York Times, they're toast too. Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, his little, propaganda rag. CNN, which is getting bought by Time Warner, AT&T. They're done. They're toast. I mean, they're going to look for people like you and Jim, and me, and Breitbart, and Alex Jones, and they're going to be looking at other places. Other people are going to fill in and take this space.
Well, that's where unbiased news is coming from. Unbiased news is now coming from different sources.
Yeah, and here's the problem with the internet, and the internet is the problem. This is the problem, and it's a forgivable problem. People state their opinion as proven fact, and so they're a little short on the journalism, but they're not short on the heart, and they're not short on the idea that they want to get out opinions and they want to get out views and news that isn't being reported in the mainstream press.
Right.
So,
and the last being a huge.
They may be a little clumsy, but their heart is in the right place.
Hey, we had pamphleteers back in the early days of the formation of this country. They may have been clumsy too, but they're extraordinarily important in developing what we used to have.
Ah, very good. There we go. What do you think about after the election? These things. Let's say Trump wins. Let's just play. Let's say Trump wins and they can't rig a landslide. Hillary can't do it. She can't. See, I think California. They say they got California in her corner, and I say, wait a minute. You're telling me that half of the voters out there feel like they were cheated in California, and you're going to retain all those voters? They're not going to vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson or stay at home or vote for Trump. You think you're going to keep all those? That to me is nonsensical.
It is nonsense.
I think California's in play. I think New York's in play.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot more states are in play than that they would think. But let's just say Donald Trump wins.
Okay.
I think we'd have the calamity right then and there. I think that's when the rubber would hit the road. I think that would be because everybody knows this is a fraud, but they're willing to play because they can keep the fraud going. Everybody knows this is a con, but they can keep. Once he comes in, con over, fraud over.
Well, and the plunge protection team would step back and they would let everything collapse, and they would say, this is what you got. You voted for it. You voted for Trump. Here you go. Your bank's closed. Your bank account's gone. Your broker's gone.
Yeah, but Trump would say, who's been saying, and I'm not arguing with you. Trump would say, I've been telling you the Fed has screwed this up. I've been telling you we're in for a crash. I've been telling you all this stuff, that we were going to in for a crash anyway. I didn't do this to the economy.
The election's on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
My money would be on the following Monday. They wouldn't be able to get the markets opened. That would be my guess.
Well, we've already seen that. We saw it in China.
Yeah, and they pulled the
that's
plug.
not too far-fetched. If you want to do a little homework, walk around the New York Stock Exchange. There's nobody there. Where there used to be 6,500 people in the building, lucky if there's 650. That is something to see. It's shocking.
Because it's all electronic.
All electronic. And when the markets get wild, there is no capital investment by specialists. They walk away and let the computer take it. That's why you get your flash crashes.
Oh, something else I want to. I don't know this, so I can't answer this question. But now we broach this, and I know you guys both do because you both have deep experience. And I don't mean to take control of your interview, but all the people are going to be asking this, and I hear this all the time. So this is what I want to know, and I do not know the answer. What about these derivatives? How can they stop a derivative implosion? I mean, ISDA or whatever it is the guy says, but they can't. How can they stop all this? And Jim, I know you know all about this. There's no guarantees. There's no standards. There's no enforcement, no regulation, no public market. How can you stop this hundreds of trillions of dollars of derivatives from going haywire and taking everything down?
Well, the only way they were able to stop it was by the Fed taking it onto their balance sheet. And the stuff the Fed took onto their balance sheet was the real crap. I mean, the stuff that will never, ever function. And there was another question deep in there. We talk about trillions of dollars. Where are you going to get trillions of dollars from? Okay? It all has to be a computer. It all has to be a computer creation because there aren't that many dollars freely floating, especially when those that have worked so close to the machine, if the machine breaks, will be hoarding the trillions of dollars that they've accumulated. Think about it. Where is all that money? Can all that money actually surface?
Well, I'd go one step further, Jim, and look at it from the standpoint of there's not enough money out there to service the debt, and certainly not enough money to pay the debt back. And that's before you even get to the derivatives.
And so part of this crisis is that those dollars don't exist, that the debt can't, under any circumstances, unwind to dollars.
Oh, my gosh.
What will it unwind to, if anything?
That'd just be massive losses, right?
Yeah. But think for a moment, if all those trillions of dollars that have gone into the economy in the last 7 years or so, where are they? Who has them? If they were called to be in a public view or actually working in a mechanism, where would they come from? There's more debt than there are money.
Right.
Way more.
Yeah, and that alone is a most critical consideration.
Oh, I have all these family members that think they're. I was just talking to two of them, and it's just, and I didn't say anything because one of them has a government pension, and the other one has a teacher's pension, and I'm just they think they're going to get it, and they're going to get it till they're old and gray, and they're not, are they?
Why take the crutch away from them? Okay, these people are living in a world that doesn't exist anymore. And it's of no use to us to say, you poor bastard, you're the most endangered species in the entire planet. But they are.
Well, this past week, there were mass retirements from the Dallas Police Department.
Yes.
They're 45% funded. So long-time cops were retiring and taking their lump sum payment because they know they're not going to get paid.
That's right.
And who wants to be a policeman in this environment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Greg,
when there's no rule of law, what are you enforcing?
Yeah. Or
you're
enforcing
the
mob. When there's no rule of law, you're at home protecting your own family. That's what you're doing.
You're a shooter from Sicily in the old days.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, you used the term massive losses.
Yes.
There will be massive losses.
Yes.
I would look at it. Yeah, there's going to be massive losses, but I think the best way to describe it is everything is going to be worth nothing.
All the paper.
Right.
Yeah.
All the paper. People think they can hide in the stock market, and maybe you guys can enlighten me on that. I had a friend of mine. Her husband died, and I knew them both. And I was telling her, God, get control of your house and buy some gold. I mean, I don't care where you buy it. I don't sell it, but you should have some of that. I mean, she had none. She had zero. She had some jewelry. I said, that's not gold. That's not the kind of gold you need. You don't need. You can't sell that. Hey, I got 14-karat gold jewelry. Great, it's 58%. And how do you weigh that? And how do you can't. You said you need coins. And so anyway, but she was holding on to a stock portfolio. Is that going to work out? I mean, the stocks?
Exist. The quote on stocks does not exist. The quote on stocks is a specter in cyberspace. That what I suggested the listeners should do. They have a place to where people can come and sit and watch the stock exchange work. Go there. There's nobody sitting watching anything. On the floor, maybe 15 guys. When they want to interview somebody. On the financial channel that bought a piece of the stock exchange floor, they got to call up and have people come down from the offices to walk around and make it look like there's a crowd. I'm telling you.
Oh, my God, I didn't know that.
It is empty. Now, that answers your question.
Yeah.
All of this is a product of mathematics, computer, and criminality. Will that stand up?
They're just not going to get their money.
They aren't.
They're just not going to get unless you have. And I know for years ago, you told people to get their actual physical certificates.
Yeah.
Can you even do that anymore? Can you get your certificate?
Not as much as you were able to then, but because the company has to be willing to issue, it's cut back, but it still exists.
Ah.
It used to cost $10 to get a certificate. It now costs $500.
For one share?
For one certificate, whether it's one share, 100,000 shares.
Oh! So you get a certificate that says I have 50 shares or I have 100 shares, and it costs you $500. It
costs you $500.
That'd be a good $500. Well spent if you want to cash that in someday.
Yes, and to backtrack just a little bit, you were asking about stocks, and I'm sure listeners are probably got this in their mind. All stocks are not the same. I mean, you've got a lot of high-tech stocks, you've got internet stocks, you have bank stocks, insurance companies on one side, and then on the other side, you've got, call it dirt and gravel or meat and potatoes type of companies that actually make something, actually manufacture or produce or grow or mine or whatever something. Those, if they don't go bankrupt, those are going to have value.
Like Warren Buffett buying the radio or buying his railroad.
Right. That should have value because it actually, they actually, move material. I mean, it's something real. It's tangible.
Well, how about a gold? How about a gold company that doesn't sell its gold?
Well, see, I think that, and I have a gold a dealer on my site who took me a year and a half to find her and she's been on for a year and a half, Discount Gold and Silver Trading, and I never get any calls. I didn't get my stuff. I got screwed. I never get that, and I don't get anything. I mean, she pays me advertising. She sells whatever to whoever. I don't get anything. I don't get a per coin or whatever. But she told me, I said, aren't gold dealers at your level, when this thing starts pegging up to $100 a day or $100, the lockout or whatever it is, how much it goes up for silver, $3, and gold, I don't know, what is it, $100 where they cut it off? You guys know that, I don't, but they're going
to. Cash will keep trading, and they can cut off paper if they want, but there's a huge worldwide international cash market that will do its own thing as it sees fit.
Right.
And at her level, because she sells to the public, I said, are you going to sell to the public with a skyrocketing price where you don't know if you can replace that inventory? She says, oh, no, we'd stop.
Yeah.
Well, the reason they would stop, Craig, and
she's been in business for 20 years.
But I'm going to tell you from a coin dealer standpoint, most coin dealers don't carry big inventory. They go through a wholesaler, and they take an order, and they hedge that order. So when they take the order, they place the order. The problem is going to be getting supply, getting product. That's going to be the problem. Is that there won't be supply available.
What you're saying is that somebody at a higher level than my person, Discount Gold and Silver, they're going to they're just going to they're going to stop selling.
Exactly. It won't be the coin dealers themselves. It'll be the wholesalers.
I mean, she has some inventory, but I can't imagine her depleting her entire inventory. And
in that instance, you have to assume that COMEX will become basically useless at that point. How would a dealer hedge the trade?
There'd be no gold. To your point, they'd pay cash, but what did you say? They'll pay cash one time. I mean, that'll be it.
Right.
There'll be no market after that. Who would use them? Then you got a dollar market, right?
You fall back to a cash market, gray or white.
Right. The paper markets will not exist because confidence will have broken that the supposed inventories did not exist or were completely depleted.
So do you think November 9th and Trump wins, you think that between the 9th, which is a Wednesday, and the following, hold on, let me look at this.
Monday.
Following Monday would be the 9th is a Wednesday. Monday would be the 14th of November. So between the 9th and the 14th, you think you're going to have a lockdown, crash, market, bond crash, stock crash. You think somewhere in that neighborhood, we would get it right then and there.
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Bill. It won't build up to a crescendo. That is the crescendo.
Oh, that's a great one. It won't build up to a crescendo. That is the crescendo. Yeah.
Well, why don't we end on that?
Okay. I appreciate you guys having me on. Actually, you were supposed to interview me, and I had my own questions because I get both you guys in the same spot to me to ask you a few questions. Oh, I love that.
This is really
well, Greg, we really appreciate it. I just wanted to hear your take, and I know Jim wanted to hear your take as far as from the media standpoint.
They're desperate. That's why they're throwing it out to the wind. They're totally desperate. They're bosses, not the inmates in the asylum.
Right.
The people running the asylum they know it. They're not stupid people. That's how they got to be executives of ABC, NBC, New York Times, whatever. They're desperate. They know what the real story is. They know it. And that's why you're seeing, and then you're seeing on top of that all the WikiLeaks, and then you're seeing them throwing caution to the wind and just saying, well, we're just going to go full-blown. They even did op-ed piece. I will end on this. New York Times allowed an op-ed piece to go on saying, well, it's our duty to do this. We're going to be unfair, but it's our duty to stop Trump, basically. It was, a few months ago in the New York Times, which got approval by the management, which is absolutely outrageous. It's not their duty to go after one candidate. So
well, it's quite contrary that they go for one candidate.
I think what it signals is that how bad they're doing. They were doing good. They would keep up the ruse of, we're trying to be fair here. We're trying to be fair. I mean, with Mitt Romney, we're trying to be fair. They tried to be fair, even though they weren't, even though they were biased and slanted and whatever. But now their gloves are off. I mean, every story you see on about Donald Trump, whether it's the New York Times or Washington Post, negative, negative, negative. USA Today, negative. And they're admitting the real stories, which are coming out in WikiLeaks, in their own handwriting, in their own words, in their own emails. Yeah. And that's off the charts.
Well, that's why the question is, where do we go from here as we started?
We're going to get a breakdown.
This is the crescendo.
I think you're right about the crescendo is the election.
Yeah, it is the election.
Well, Greg, thank you very much. And maybe we can do this again after the election.
Maybe we do it on the 9th or whatever. Maybe
I'll be happy to come on with you guys. I mean, you let me know. I'll be happy to come on. Just whatever you want to do. I just love
do it under your format.
You know, Greg, you're smarter than most of the people you interview.
I don't know about that. I'm certainly not smarter than you and Bill. That's for
And
dang
on top
sure.
of that, you're our hero because you refused to bend when they tried to make you publish false news.
That's right. I was supposed to act surprised.
Yeah.
They got pissed.
You wouldn't bend, and it cost you your career, and you've gotten your career back. You're a hero.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, you've made your career.
Yeah,
thank you.
hero.
Very kind.
You built it yourself.
Well, I know people are going to hear this, but I want to say when I first started, I mean, just one other thing, and I want to say this, and this is a compliment on you, Jim. You started your site 2002 or 3. I mean, you were on a long time. I was reading you at CNN, and I was like, who is this Jim Sinclair dude, Mr. Gold? I mean, what is but you know the truth when you hear it. So you'd have all that. That sounds right. I'd be reading you going, that just sounds like the truth. Why aren't other people doing this? Man, listen to this commentary. You'd have these news stories. You'd have your commentary. You still do. And but I started out, I mean, I'd have like 9 people read my stuff. I'd have like 10 people, 15. And then you started linking to me, and I'd have 10,000 people reading it. And so you helped me a tremendous amount with jsmindset.com.
I knew you were a hero.
Tremendous amount get started because you gave me legitimacy.
You were Patrick Henry, okay?
Oh, thank you.
That's my opinion, and history will say just that.
And it wasn't, it was nothing. I wasn't paying you. You didn't pay me. I mean, you just liked me, and I liked. That's why I had you as a guest at CNN, which I was surprised they let you come on. I actually was shocked. I think, damn, I can't believe I got embedded. But that you were a real guy, totally real guy on CNN. What? Jim Sinclair was on CNN? Oh, absolutely. And most of what you said came true, incidentally. By the way, in 2000, back we talked about 2012 and the election and all that, and how bad things were going to get for people, and inflation was going to so slowly eat them. And what has happened? They've been eaten. Yeah,
the frog's boiling.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Well, in my view, and I think the view of history, you were the person at MSN that wouldn't let it happen on your watch.
Thank you.
And we're willing to sacrifice everything for that.
You're very kind. You helped me, though. Thank you.
No, I really.
And Bill, you're the man too. And I really appreciate you guys inviting me on your show. Thank you very much for having me on. I'll come on anytime.
Well, thank you so very much, Greg.
Thank you, and God bless our listeners. We'll be back to you next week. Hope you enjoyed this. Bye-bye.
Bye, fellas.